Yesterday, a federal court ruled that THCO is legal under the 2018 Farm Bill in a surprise win for the synthetic cannabinoid sellers and producers. So let's hear it for the molecule. Give me a T.
E.
Okay. Give me an H.
H.
Give me a C.
T.
Give me a O.
Trump legalized it.
That's THCO, folks. It's the acetate of THC, so it's a prodrug of THC. And in an unexpected win for the embattled U.S. hemp industry, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that in intoxicating hemp-derived products, THCO is classified as legal under the 2018 Farm Bill. As the U.S. hemp industry continues its battle against both the U.S. cannabis industry and growing legislation aimed at banning intoxicating or synthetic hemp substances, this groundbreaking decision will come as a much-needed reprieve for many businesses. On October 4th, the court effectively challenged the DEA's assertion that THCO was an illegal substance, starting with its arguments, quote, lack of power to persuade. The question here involved Tanya Anderson, who was let go from her job at Diamondback Investment Group after failing 2 drug tests for THC found in her system. Anderson, who was using hemp-derived products, including CBD oil and products containing THCO to treat anxiety and muscle spasms, argued that she was wrongfully terminated because the products she used were legal. While Anderson ultimately lost the case and failed to have her termination overturned, the court ruled definitely that THCO and other synthetically derived hemp substances were legal under current federal law. According to the ruling, THCO is synthetically derived and does not naturally occur in the cannabis plant. In a 2023 letter, in its interim final rule, the DEA argues that THCO is therefore Scheduled 1 controlled substance alongside cocaine and heroin because it's not naturally found in hemp. However, in a surprise ruling, the court cited a previous ruling from the Ninth Circuit Court that synthetic cannabinoids still fall under the definition of hemp as long as they are originally derived from the plant and contain less than 0.3% delta-9 THC on a dry basis. We reject Diamondback's contention that the DEA's interim final rule or letter mandates a finding that THCO is illegal. With such a clear rebuke of the DEA, the decision sends a clear signal to the federal courts will refer to the simple language of the 2018 Farm Bill and not the DEA's interpretation when dealing with synthetic cannabinoid cases. That's pretty significant. Despite the positive development for hemp businesses, the new Farm Bill currently making its way through the legislative process includes the Mary Miller Amendment. This amendment is designed to regulate the flourishing, intoxicating hemp industry and would also have an impact on the country's hemp and CBD industries, making 90 to 95% of the hemp products on this market, including FDA-approved animal feed, which is banned. So, yeah, this is a pretty significant overturning. We remember that the attorney who shills for the hemp industry, a guy named Rod Kite from North Carolina, basically queried the DEA about THC acetate, and that's basically when the DEA came back and said, well, no, it's synthetic, so therefore it's Schedule 1, and also it's derived from either Delta 8 or Delta 9, which are also Schedule 1. So I think that this ruling is problematic for many reasons, but I think this kind of shows the power that the hemp industry lobby has basically put into play here. When you have the Fourth Circuit Court basically overruling what a DEA administrator is saying, there's no consensus in the government. Now, THC acetate, it is correct, it is not a naturally occurring compound. And what they found, and I think we've talked about this on High at 9, is that when that's heated up in a vape pen, it could degrade into a very toxic compound called ketene, which is not something you want to be inhaling into the into your lungs. It's not something you want to come in contact with at all. So I think that there are some problems with this overturning, but I think this is going to send a clear message to the hemp producers that it's game on for THCO and any one of the alphabet soup of cannabinoids that these folks are making. That's my input from here at the St. Michael's College in Colchester, Vermont. I'd be interested in what my colleagues have to say. In particular, Dr. T, what do you think about this? You think THCO should be readily available for people?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The problem is that we rely on lawyers, judges, and the DEA to tell us about science and health. It's just a bad system from the beginning. We need to go to the scientists for the science, not the regulator. The regulators are ridiculous. Yeah, I'm concerned about this because we had the vape pen crisis with another acetate, a vitamin E acetate, right? Is this going to spark another crisis? I don't know. We don't have good data on THCO. We have plenty of data on Delta 9. So go to town with Delta 9 THC. But I have a big question mark for THCO here.
I can't wait for the collab between SpaghettiOs and THCO to come out and be released.
THCOs?
What's that, Jenny?
THCOs?
Yep, something like that. THCO.
What are the use cases for THCO, Dr. Mark and Dr. T? None.
What was the question again?
What are the use cases? Like, what's the efficacy for THCO? Like, is there...
Yeah,
is there
so THCO is the acetate of THC, which turns into THC in the body. So THCO, or an acetate ester, is basically a prodrug. It's what we call a prodrug. So what we're administering is not the active ingredient, but on metabolism of that compound, now it makes the active ingredient. So the active ingredient is still either Delta 8 or Delta 9. What I would assume, because this is the hemp-derived space, is that they would preferentially want to make the acetate of Delta 8, right? Because they think that Delta 8 exists in this loophole. Although if you look at the Controlled Dangerous Substance Act, which predates the Farm Bill by about 30 years, you'll see that Delta 8 THC is mentioned by name under code 7370 for tetrahydrocannabinols. Now, again, the plant doesn't make Delta 8, right? So Delta 8, all the Delta 8 products out there, without exception, are synthetic. The problem with the synthesis is that it's not clean. When you convert CBD into Delta 8, it makes a variety of different products. So all those variety of different products are now in the next reaction, which is the acetylation of the phenol group to make the acetate. So you not only have THC Delta 8 acetate in there, you have a little bit of Delta 9, probably a little bit of Delta 10, Delta XYZ. God knows what else is in there. The other thing that's an issue, I would just say this, is that, you know, the acetates in general, Jenny, so like think of heroin. So morphine, I think, Matthew, you've talked about this, right? Mm-hmm. So in making THC acetate, you need a synthetic precursor called acetic anhydride. Well, the DEA is already watching acetic anhydride because that's the process that they use to make heroin, right? So it's kind of like, I won't call it the heroin of weed, but people have called it because they think, oh, okay, it's the same kind of process. But essentially, this is a chemical process that's making a biologically active ingredient. So all the things that we talk about when we talk about making active pharmaceutical ingredients, we have to have a industrially scalable process to make this. We have to have product specifications on the purity and the ingredients that are used in the process. And then we have to have third-party labs who are good enough to basically not only find a major active ingredient, but understand all those minor impurities to be able to assess the purity of these things. We just don't have that in place right now. So I think that this is a pretty irresponsible ruling by this court, because it's basically going to give the green light to all those unswarthy actors who are basically making products for this market. And Jason, we've talked about this. How are the dispensaries, right, which have to have seed to sale tracking, have to have all of their employees with FBI background checks, have to have a medical marijuana card, all the constraints that the cannabis industry exists today. How are they going to compete with an $8 vape pen made of THCO that they can buy online, and 2 clicks after saying you're 21, it's asking you for your credit card information.
Yep.
There's no competition. And that market, they estimate in excess of $50 billion worldwide. That's bigger than all the combined cannabis markets stacked together, which they think is only around $29 billion. So, I mean, it's a much larger addressable market with much less regulation. And I think this court ruling is basically going to open up the floodgate even more.
It's like we're going to have a wave of like spice type stuff coming out again. And what we saw with that is, in this botanical rush to babysit adults and keep them safe, what legislators here, and especially in the South did, was unleash this wave of spice. And the spice, which are all these synthetic cannabinoids, ended up having all kinds of mental health problems, overdose problems, sickness problems. And it's like, I just hope, and my story is going to talk about this a little bit, that we as adults can continue to get ourselves of fear and make informed, rational choices. Like, bro, everybody wants to change their consciousness. Let's figure out the cleanest, safest, healthiest way for people to do so, instead of trying to create these guardrails around other people's like inner worlds.
Hey, Dr.
Let's
Mark,
keep people safe by allowing them to get high.
Yeah, I agree with you, MSG. Well, Dr. Mark, I do have to push back on the $8 carts.
Why are they 10?
There, this will at least be $10 because it's top shelf. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you got to make up for the potency.
I knew there was a $10 coming in somewhere. I knew. Yeah.
I have an actual question. So is this a cannabinoid that you're going to find in my mother liquor when I'm doing an extraction, or is this something that has to be intentionally converted? And
No. Yeah, this is not naturally occurring. You won't find this in mother liquor. You need a chemical called acetic anhydride to make this. So this is intentionally being made. And what it does, because there's some half-life to the acetate in your body, is it gives you a longer onset of activity. So you really feel that creeper. Like when you first take the hit, you may not feel high like you would with THC, but then like 10 or 15 minutes later, all of a sudden you're like, whoa. So what's happened is as the compound comes into your body, like we said, the acetate gets hydrolyzed, releases THC, and now that has the activity. What might happen is making the acetate might give you enhanced permeation across the blood-brain barrier, which is going to affect the pharmacokinetics and the pharmacodynamics, which is how these things act and are metabolized in the body.
I think, okay.
Fair enough. And on that, we're going to roll into our final commercial. We're going to be right back.